I'm Susan Page, Washington Bureau Chief of USA Today, and this is Capital Download. We're at the headquarters of the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, and we're talking today with the President, Lee Saunders. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
April 4th is the 45th anniversary of the assassination of Martin Luther King, Jr. He was in Memphis that day in 1968 in support of a strike of your workers. Tell us about that.
Well, there were 1,300 sanitation workers who had been battling the city, seeking recognition for their union, seeking better pay, better benefits, but also seeking dignity and respect on the job. And they weren't getting any solutions, and the city was non-responsive. So they took a major step, a big step. After 2 sanitation workers died at work, were crushed on the job, the sanitation workers, the 1,300 sanitation workers, decided that they had to take more militant action, and they actually went out on strike. And Dr. King noticed and saw the strike, felt that it was important for him to be involved in that strike. We reached out to him, the union. We understood and believed that there was a deep connection even in 1968 with the labor rights movement, the labor movement, and the civil rights movement. And we wanted to bring those movements closely together. And he came to Memphis, and he came on a number of occasions. Unfortunately, the last time he came, he did the speech at the Mason Temple. And then the next day on April 4th, he was killed. We are honoring not only the memory of Dr. King, but we're honoring the strikers who really risked their lives to have a better life for themselves and their families. But we're honoring them, and we're making this a much bigger deal this year because it's the 45th anniversary. So we're having national leaders come in. Reverend Al Sharpton is going to be there. Martin Luther King III will be there. Ben Jealous from the NAACP. We have Congress people coming in, civil rights leaders, religious leaders are coming in outside of Memphis, and then we're involving the Memphis community to really honor what went on in 1968 and remember the importance of that strike and the involvement of Dr. King, but also to rededicate ourselves to the struggle that continues today. We've made a lot of strides since 1968, this country has, but we've got a long way to go. And a lot of challenges face our communities, and we've just got to rededicate ourselves to the fight.
Now, incredibly, of those 1,300 workers on strike in 1968, some of them are still on the job.
They are. There is one individual who's in his mid-70s who is still actually picking up trash, and he's a sanitation worker. We're going to be talking with them when I go down at the beginning of the week. We're going to bring the remaining sanitation workers together who went out on strike, and they'll be a part of the activities on April 3rd, the evening of April 3rd, where we'll be at Mason Temple, where Dr. King spoke, but also during the march on April 4th.
I noticed in the lobby of AFSCME headquarters here, there is a replica of the statue on the mall of Martin Luther King, Jr. So a special resonance with Dr. King for this union? Well,
there's such a close connection, and there will always be a close connection. He gave his life supporting 1,300 sanitation workers who were AFSCME members. He didn't have to do that. As a matter of fact, a lot of his advisors were saying, don't go to Memphis. If you recall, he was in the middle of planning the Poor People's March in Washington, D.C. They were concentrating on doing that, but he felt that he had to go to Memphis and support these workers because he understood the value and he understood the importance of linking the civil rights struggle with labor rights in this country and economic rights in this country and dignity and respect for all workers.
You were elected president of AFSCME last year, the first African-American ever to head this 1.6 million member union. Why did it take so long to elect an African-American as president?
Well, I mean, I don't know why it took so long. I'm happy that I'm president. I think that this country has changed, and our union is a microcosm of this country. I think that our union was ready for an African American to be president. I've worked with this union for 36 years, almost in every department of the national union. I've also had extensive field experience. I worked in New York City for 4 years. I've been involved in major contracts across the country in major cities and major states. So I think that I was ready, and I think that our members and our delegates who voted for me believed that I was ready to take over this union from an individual who had served this union very well and built a very strong foundation, Jerry McEntee, who retired and who I work with very, very closely. So I think that folks believed that it was a time and it was the right person for the job, and I am very humbled by the support that I've gotten.
You mentioned challenges, today's challenges to organized labor, and we saw last year in Wisconsin, Governor Scott Walker really took on the public employee unions and sought to limit some collective bargaining rights. He was recalled, but then he won re-election. And I wonder if you think there is a sense among some Americans, maybe many Americans, that public employees have gotten their pay and their pensions have just gotten out of hand, especially at a time of economic travail.
Well, I think there's a lot of misinformation that's floating around, and you have this noise machine by the ultra-conservatives across the country who like to point their fingers and blame public service workers for the problems associated with the economy right now in state and local governments. That's the furthest thing from the truth. Not only are we union members and proud public servants, we perform essential public services every single day, whether it's sanitation work, whether it's performing work in healthcare centers, child care, home care, all of those kinds of occupations within public service. We do that every single day. We serve the public. And we understand when our communities are hurting, when our state and local governments are hurting economically, that we've got to make sacrifices. And we're willing to make those kinds of sacrifices when, in fact, we have the ability to sit down and talk about those issues at the bargaining table. But to say that the best way to confront the economic problems of this country and state and local governments is to ignore the collective bargaining process or take it away is wrongheaded, because that is where you can resolve the issues and the problems. Secondly, we're willing to sacrifice, but we aren't willing to share the total burden. We believe, honestly, that we are not the privileged class, as some people would call us. The average salary for an AFSCME member is about $45,000 a year. When our retirees move on and they want to retire and have a good life based upon 30, 35 years of experience and 35 years of work, their average salary is about $19,000 a year, the average retirement benefit. That is not the privileged class. So what we've got to do, I believe, is just promote public services and the work that our members perform, continue to sit down where we can to try to resolve the issues that confront not only our members, but our communities across the country. But we cannot be scapegoated. We should not be scapegoated.
Now, Governor Walker indicates he wants to run for president in 2016. Will AFSCME remember your experiences with him?
We never forget. We have long memories. And what Scott Walker did was uncalled for. He stole our voices, essentially, in the state where we were born. In the early 1930s, AFSCME was born in Madison, Wisconsin. A group of state workers got together and decided that they were tired of the patronage system. They were tired of being mistreated. They wanted to have a voice on the job. They wanted to have collective bargaining so they could negotiate over wages and benefits. So they formed this great union, and now we're 1.6 million members strong. Isn't it ironic that in the state where we were born, we have a governor now who has taken our rights away from us and taken our voices away from us, and we're going to continue to fight in that state.
So if he runs for president, what should he expect from you?
He should expect that we will oppose him every step of the way.
You know, it's not just Republicans, though. You've had a big battle with the Illinois governor, Pat Quinn, who's a Democrat. You have an ongoing battle with Michael Nutter, the Democratic mayor of Philadelphia. And you were quoted in the Huffington Post in February as saying that fair weather Democrats date us, take us to the prom, marry us, and then divorce us right after the honeymoon. Do you think that's happening?
Oh, I do. I do. In some cases, I really believe that. Whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, if you stand up for working families, if you treat public service workers fairly, then we'll stand with you. But it really does annoy me when we support candidates and after that election is over with, they have amnesia and they forget how they got there and who supported them. And they want to take us on rather than work with us to resolve problems. And when politicians do that, then I think there should be a price to pay. And I think that we've got to be more aggressive in our approach in holding politicians accountable, and that's exactly what we're doing now.
So how would you hold Democratic politicians who you'd help to elect, like Pat Quinn or like Michael Nutter, how would you hold them accountable? What would you like to see the union
Well, fortunately
do?
in Illinois, I mean, we had some very tough negotiations, but we were able to resolve those differences, and we agreed on a contract, and the contract was ratified overwhelmingly. We had to put heat on the governor in order to do that, and he had to feel the heat and feel our members and feel their resolve in standing up for themselves and standing up for their communities and standing up for their jobs. Now, we've got to continue to do that. If a Republican or Democratic elected official is not responsive, then we will take that into consideration the next time they're running for office. We put a lot of boots on the ground. We're a very active, politically charged union. I mean, we involve ourselves in political and legislative action all over this country. We have our members volunteering. They make phone calls. They knock on doors. We spend a lot of resources on politics by putting friends into office. And if they turn against us, then they don't deserve our support.
Do you think organized labor has been too reluctant to hold Democratic office holders to account when that happens?
I think that we've got to hold all politicians accountable, and I believe that whether you have an R behind your name or a D behind your name, if you think that you can take advantage of us, take advantage of our support, and not support us on the very important issues that confront not only trade union members and union members across this country, but working families, then I think that there should be a price to pay, and they've got to understand that maybe that support will not be forthcoming in the future.
One last question, and this one about politics in the 2016 race. AFSCME endorsed Hillary Clinton in the 2008 primaries. I wonder, do you think she's going to run?
Well, I haven't talked to her. She's a good friend of this union. We've supported her when she ran for Senate in New York. We were the first major union to support Bill Clinton when he ran for president. We clearly have very, very strong ties with the Clintons. I think that she was a great senator. I think she did a fabulous job as Secretary of State, and I would look forward to her running for president. But the decision is hers, obviously, and we'll see what direction she takes.
Lee Saunders, thanks for joining us on Capitol Download.
Thanks for having me.